This is the master chassis I just installed for the Rey Scavenger lightsaber, and today I'm going to be going over the fourth one I ever built, so let's get right into it. So as I said in the beginning, this is the fourth time I've built this Rey Scavenger master chassis, and I like to think that I do it better every single time, so I'll be covering basically everything new I've done, along with everything that I have pretty much made standard in all of my builds here. And this was a commission for a customer, so this will also serve as a reference guide and basically everything you need to know about the lightsaber for him. So, I guess to start off, I'll go over the hilt part of it. So when I first ordered the lightsaber, I actually forgot that KR Sabers no longer does the weathering services. So when I got the lightsaber, it was for the unweathered version, which I'm actually going to grab right now and show it to you real quick. Here you go. Pretty blank. I have my personal Rey Master chassis in here. It's not nearly as nice because it was the first time I ever built it, and I have definitely refined it over the years. But as you can see, unweathered, just black everywhere. So yeah, and because of that, I just went ahead and used my lightsaber that I've had for, I don't know, a year and a half. Whenever the first batch of these came out, back at the very beginning, I was one of the first people who bought it. So this is one of the first ones from the very beginning that I'll be giving to you because, you know, I thought I totally forgot about the clean one. Unless you want the clean one, the price doesn't change at all because I charged you for the unweathered version. So I'm just giving this to you for free. And let me go over a few things that I had to do because what I noticed between the newer ones and the older ones, especially this one, there's a couple things I needed to do, like get some new screws. These ones were too long in the original, so I have the short screws on here. These were also slightly too long for whatever reason, so I just filed them down a little bit, and it works perfectly. Now the chassis can go in and out without these needing to be loose. So these can be as tight as possible, and then it still guides everything in place. Up here, I had to do a lot of work in order to make the emitter petal be as smooth as I possibly can make it, as well as having it open up large enough to have the blade plug and blade be able to be inserted and removed without activating the button. So there was a lot of sanding, filing, like super smooth sanding, so I made it as smooth as possible so all the mechanisms can go up and down as smoothly as they can. The key is to all this is as smooth and nothing impeding the movements of everything as I could possibly get it, and that includes WD-40 and whatnot. So it took a lot of work to get it where it was, and I think it's about as good as I can possibly get it. Next, I added the B grade Rey steel petals. So these are the B grade version, which honestly I like much better than the standard version, the standard steel petal versions that he offered. I do have those for my own personal lightsaber, but I do like these. I probably will need to get some of these myself. And what I noticed about them is they're shinier. You can see more of a metallic look to them, and the bluing and sort of purple effect is a lot stronger on the B grade, which just feels a little bit more real. So I added these onto it. Makes it look really nice. And as you can see, this thing just slides super smooth now. The only other thing I'm going to mention right now is the screws. As you probably know, the screws are very finicky. I've never had a screw come off of the emitter petals, but the screws that are annoying that you need to keep an eye on all the time are the 4 per arm. The 2 up top, up here, and then 2 down below. I don't know if you'll be able to see it properly, so let me get a flashlight here. There you go. You can kind of see the 2 screws holding the emitter petals at the top of the arm, and then 2 at the bottom. The 2 at the bottom rarely ever fall out, but keep an eye out on them and tighten them occasionally. And then the top ones, they do tend to fall out quite a bit. And what I do for those is I take a tiny screwdriver or tiny pair of tweezers that have a nice, accurate, pointed tip, and then I just poke and prod them, turn them in the clockwise direction. But the key is, do not over tighten them because it will restrict the movement of the arms. If the bottom ones especially are too tight, it's going to be much harder to move these and they won't have the full range of motion and won't be as smooth. The top ones, They can be a little bit tighter, but they will still restrict the movement if they're super tight. So you want them to be just tight enough, but not over tightened. It'll take a little, you'll get used to it once you practice it, but that's the main reason why I don't glue these on, because I'm told that it's possible to glue them in place to make them not fall out, but I've never done it, and it's a bit scary considering how finicky these are. I don't want to glue the arms in place, and I also don't want to glue the screws in a bad position where it restricts the movement. So that is the one downside of this entire saber, is just the complexity of the emitter petal mechanism. And other than that, I think I covered everything about the hilt. The only other thing you'll need to know is I have aligned the blade retention screw along with all of these screws. So everything is in a line. I have the clip. This can change whenever, but I have it aligned with this little notch in the grip section, which is aligned with this screw, which is aligned with this one, and this screw actually is what presses the button on the inside and makes everything work. And then it's aligned with this screw, which is the blade retention screw. So everything useful is aligned on this back end, is what I like to think of it as. And you can also tell by looking at the petals as well, because I made sure to try and align them all with a, I guess it makes like a gradient that makes sense, where it's a stronger gradient with each other, so it's not random. So I tried to make it make sense, so I didn't just put the petals wherever. So the more purple one actually is in line with all of the screws. The more purple one and this one, they're kind of in line with all the necessary screws. So I have everything that's useful in line with everything, so you should be able to tell where everything is. Now that's enough with the lightsaber, the actual hilt portion of the lightsaber. Let's move on to the chassis. Now I did my standard brass, black, and Scotch Brighting for all of this. So you Scotch Bright everything, brass black it, and then I worked super hard to make it as functionally, like it makes sense in your brain where all of the clear bits are, all the undarkened ones. So after you brass black it, you hit it with some Scotch Brite again to brighten up some things. And yeah, it's just all the outer section, so it really brings out the depth in all of the details. Hopefully you'll be able to tell, especially in person, you can see it a lot. Another thing I tried that was a little bit new was I tried adding some heat to it. So I had a lighter, so I figured I might as well try to heat them up a bit, add a little bit of heat coloring if I could. Turns out my lighter is not as hot as it needs to be. I did briefly get them to be colored, but after they've cooled down over time, it seems like the colors kind of disappeared. So I added heat to everywhere that I felt made sense, because the whole thing about this lightsaber is I wanted everything to kind of be cohesive and make it as realistic as possible. So I added some heat to the inside of here, and they did have a little bit of color. You might or might not be able to tell the difference, but I added a little bit there, as well as the tips of the motor that moves. And then I tried adding some heat to the little, well, I call this section the turbine section, with these grill things, and then this, I guess, is like an energy pulsing section. So this thing, that kind of looks like an engine of some kind. I did add some heat to that. I added heat on the inside of the turbine section, the engine section, and the sort of energy pulsing section. That'll all make sense once I show you my accent sequencing. But I added heat to all the places that made sense. I don't know if it really made a difference. Maybe you'll be able to tell, but I tried it anyways. I also did it at the bottom of the soundboard cover, where the other accent pixels by the speaker are. It initially had some really nice color, but over time it kind of just got dark, so I don't think it really made too much of a difference, but who knows, you might be able to tell. Other than that, what I do with every single one of these Rey Master Chassis, that does take a little bit more effort, but I've kind of honed down the process over time, are the little rod tube things. So the little tube things that go in these slots and hold these pieces in place. There's a total of 12 of them. There's 6 up top. You can see them right here. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. And the same down here. what I do with those is I don't just cut them and plop them in, I make sure that the insides are hollow so that light can bleed through them. They don't really bleed through these bottom ones because there's no light to shine. They all shine upwards, not downwards, which is where these are. But in the top section, you should be able to see the light shine through the holes. And I think it's a pretty cool addition, makes it look pretty neat. And in any case, it just makes everything look as clean as possible because I like to put the nicest looking circle end of the rod in there, showing on the outside. Because I want to make it look as nice as it can. And I just really like those details. They just look so nice. And then I think the only other thing that I will mention is, I guess there's two other things. One are the red wires. I do on all of them, but on the last build, Rey Master Chassis number 3, I tried adding the heat shrink to them, and I think it adds a lot to the visuals, so I did the same here. And instead of using a soldering iron to heat it up as carefully as I can, I used a lighter to heat it up. And that has one benefit of tightening up the heat shrink, but also not tightening it so much where you can't move them. So these are mobile, you can move them, but they do have restriction to their movement, so it's not super easy to move it. But you can relocate them to any section of the red wire to change however you want it to look. Personally, I like it a little bit closer to the bottom. I just think it balances the look of the saber out, but you can change it however you like. Now, the last thing, and I think the biggest thing visually in this lightsaber is, as you might have noticed if you've seen my other videos, I am not using the captain tape, the sort of orangey see-through captain tape, to insulate the board. And it's just the soundboard. As you can see, I kind of made this as flat as possible, but and that I mean is the two solder points that I am worried about touching the brass of the board cover. But the main reason why I'm able to do this, and the main reason why I guess I did it in my previous builds, was I had so many wires coming through the sides that the board was kind of tricky to put the board flat as possible against the battery and the little ridges that hold the soundboard, which meant the soundboard was ever so slightly high enough where it worried me for potentially touching the edges of the brass here. So touching that and then touching that. But since I did I think this is my best work in, I guess, arranging all of the wires and making them as few as possible, putting them all exactly where they need to be in the most efficient way possible. I think I did the best job out of all 4 Rey sabers I've made, which allowed me to put the soundboard further down, so it's sitting further down, and I have less solder here, made it more flat, where I am no longer worried about potentially causing shorts or anything, because they don't really touch. And I've been testing this a whole bunch, and it works perfectly fine. Now, I will say that this is a force-activated lightsaber, so it's the Crystal Focus 10.2, which is the 9-axis Crystal Focus board, which currently is not being made and hasn't been made in many months now. Hopefully it'll come back, because I love those guys, because the other soundboards we have are not magnetic sensing, so I can't do the force activation. But my customer wanted him to have the force activated soundboard in here. I didn't really have any left to put in here. So what I ended up doing was I ended up tearing this one out of my Malibu Darksaber, which it's perfectly fine because the Malibu Darksaber is really not a good hilt for force activation because the aluminum or the metal that's used is so thick that it's incredibly difficult to dial in a good force activation thing, and it was just kind of lame. So it's getting much, I guess it's being used much better in this lightsaber than it was in the other one, so I'm perfectly happy to give you that soundboard. Now, I guess it's time to turn this on, because I've basically covered absolutely everything. I guess I will mention a couple things about the wiring, since I did mention I did it a lot better. I found much smaller sized resistors for the motor and the blade detection, because this does have chassis detection. So the resistors are much tinier, so they don't take up that much space. And then I put the motor resistor up here, where it has some extra space, and the blade detection one is down here. But those tiny resistors really made a huge difference, and the fact that I routed all the wires super well. And just, I guess the order I did the pixels near the speaker, it's all very technical, but I made it very efficient. And I'm very, 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 very proud of how this one came out, because I think it's the best one yet. So let's just turn it on and I can show you how everything works. So it starts off, you've got a pulsing crystal. It pulses yellow. And then when you turn it on, it'll be the... I forgot exactly what sound font it is, but it's basically the sound font with... where it's like a non-working sound font, where it's not in the blade, it's kind of in a maintenance mode.
Welcome. Core stability at 93.138%. Ready.
Alright, and you can see the whole pixel sequencing light up and the patterns that I set up for it. This is the standard one that I came up with three builds ago, I guess. And I love it so much that I just use it in every one, because I took so much time to make it make sense. Let me go over it for you guys once more.
Core stability confirmed. Maintenance mode deactivated. Crystal core shielded. Goodbye.
Alright, so this has such a large startup and, I guess, detraction of the blade in the sound font that it allows me to do a lot with the pixels. I have 47 pixels in here, 47 accent pixels lighting up this entire thing. I have them strung up in sequence and tied to LS2, which is the second data spot on the soundboard. And what that means is you can control all 47 of these pixels with the pixels, or with the Pixies folder, which is independent from the main blade. So all of these are independently addressable, and you can use the new Pixies setup to just tell every single one what to do in such an insanely customizable way. It's crazy. But I've got 3 pixels by the speaker here. I've got, I think it was 12 or 20? Yeah, 20 pixels in a large pixel ring. So I've got a large pixel ring shooting up through the turbine section here, through these grill sections. And then I've got a string of 7 neopixel accents going upwards. And around that I have clear heat shrink that I sanded to help diffuse it. So all of this is diffused accent lights. And then I have a single pixel up here. And then it might have been 16 or 12 or something like this up here, but basically the medium accent pixel. So medium accent pixel, single pixel, 7 pixels through there, large accent pixel ring, and then 3 accent pixel strip here. And this also has the clear heat shrink that I sanded to help diffuse it a bit. So all of those are independently addressable, and you can see them go through their pattern. So when I turn it on, it shoots yellow, like a yellow energy, out from the crystal, out through the entire lightsaber, like it's powering everything. And then it'll close back in, and then it'll shoot out one of every color, I believe. And then it'll be all yellow and close back in on the crystal before everything settles into their idle animations.
Welcome. Core stability at 93.138%. Ready.
Alright, something like that. And then this is how I have it all set up. I have green and blue sort of circling and cycling in the medium accent pixel up here. You can also sort of see the light shining through the holes like I mentioned before. You'll definitely be able to see it more in person. But I have those green and blue to sort of replicate the look of the concept art of what the inside of Rey's lightsaber would look like, which, if you don't know, it had a green crystal and a blue crystal, I believe. And that was from Luke and Leia's lightsaber that she buried. So I kind of have green and blue to indicate that sort of mixing going on between those two crystals. And then you've got the yellow crystal, of course. Throughout this energy pulsing section, I've got a white light because, you know, I kind of like the way it looks. It's just going up and down throughout this whole engine pulsing section. And then
Christmas.
here in the turbine area, this is the end of the animation in the sound file. And then it just starts over. But in the turbine section, we have orange, yellow, and I think a little bit of blue chasing around in a circle in a slow chase. So it's kind of dissipating the heat a little bit is what I like to think about it. And then down here, I just have the 3 pixels blinking red, green, and blue, just because I think it's a kind of nice pattern. And then when I have everything turned off,
Your command.
It'll have a completely different animation.
Failed.
Oh.
Repair unsuccessful. Actions incomplete.
That was one of the blaster block
Dependency on
effects.
secondary part replacement.
I gotta hold it a little longer. There we go.
Core stability confirmed. Maintenance mode deactivated.
So this is where it starts pulsing all the colors towards the
Crystal
crystal.
core shielded. Goodbye.
And we're back to idle. So that covers everything you need to know about the chassis outside of the lightsaber. I'll show you the chassis detect now. Well, actually, totally forgot. Let me show you the force activation. What you will need is a magnetic ring. You can get it from KR Sabers at the Saber Armory, or you can get it on Amazon. I'll probably send you a link. But force activation.
Welcome. Core stability at 93.1.
You just wave it over the soundboard, and I have it tuned so finely that you actually don't need to be that close to the lightsaber. And it doesn't have any false ignitions. But if it ever does have false ignitions, or you want to set this up however you want with the magnetic fields
Core stability confirmed.
stuff.
Maintenance mode deactivated.
Alright, just a second while it happens.
Goodbye.
You just need to plug it into the rice connector, or you do the micro USB, plug it in to your computer, do the rice connection with CFX. Speaking of which, you do want to have a 90-degree angle micro USB if you don't already. And when you turn off the kill switch here, crystal might light up red a little bit. I think that's because some power is stuck somewhere, so you just turn it off and turn it back on, and there you go. Or turn it on, back off, and then everything should be dark again. So you're going to need a 90-degree micro USB to plug it into the rice port, and when you want to set up the magnetic field thing, you got to reset the magnetic field, redetect what you want it to. You do the magic calibration option, and then it'll ask you to spin the hilt, so you spin it. I like to spin it this way, and then this way, and then roll it, and then you press it to keep it, and then that recalibrates the magnetic field detection. And then you'll just need to edit down the magnetic magic feature, which basically tells it how much to detect until it does its change of state. But anyways, you can figure all that out with the resources down in the description of my video, which will be everything you need to know about CFX, how to customize it, etc. And of course, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. The only other thing you got to know is how to remove the SD card, where everything, lives. You just take the battery out, you can reach in from underneath it, click it, and then I use 2 fingers here to sort of pull it out, like that. There you go. Comes right out. And then you use 2 fingers again to sort of align it, and then click it back into place. Now we can put this into the hilt. Negative goes towards the speaker, the positive goes towards the crystal and everything else. Keep that in mind, you don't want to swap it, of course. And then when you put on the soundboard cover, put it on from the bottom first, so this section, put it on here, and then you can push in the top. That's the best way to put it in. I found that when you put it in from the top and go to the bottom, it doesn't really work out all that well, but it is held in with magnets. But what I've found is this one is a bit of a tighter fit than the other chassis that I've made, so it might be the way it's printed or whatever else, but in any case, that's how you do it. And then you sometimes may want to press it a little bit more because the wires are sitting underneath that section. So let's turn it on. You can open this up by just twisting it because it is a J-lock or whatever system. What I like to do is I like to align the button here with the front side, not the back side. Does it matter? No, it's just, that's what I like to do every time. And then you align the guiding sort of channel with this guiding channel here. So the guiding channel on the chassis with the one on the hilt. That's when you put this in the hilt, you got to make sure the screws line up appropriately or it won't go in. So here are the screws, and then they stick out a little bit here. And that's what guides the chassis in. So you just align the screws with the screw channel guides, slide it in, and you've got the chassis detection. Now I'll take it out and I'll show you the sound I edited to make it sound a little bit cooler and not as long as the original sound font. So just take it out.
Chassis disengaged. Crystal core exposed. Repair and maintenance mode operational.
There you go. That's the sound that I edited down to make it pretty cool when you remove it. But basically, if you don't know what chassis detection is, it goes from the non-working font that I showed you earlier. When you put it in, it makes the detection sound and it automatically switches to a working font. And the working font I have it set up to is a Rey font. So, yeah, that's just how it works and it's really fun. So, as you can see, when you do take it out, you want to be careful because it's pretty easy for the chassis to turn and get misaligned. So, that'll just prevent it from sliding out of the hilt. It's not going to cause any damage, but it'll prevent it from sliding out smoothly because basically the screws go off track. So, connection, disconnection, make sure it goes along the channel and you're fine.
Crystal core exposed. Repair and maintenance mode operational.
Now let's put this back and I'll show you everything with the hilt. There you go. Turn this.
Mute.
Ooh, there we go. I accidentally held it there for too long, but you go over and tap it. So, the button is at the very, very end of the range of motion here. So you go a little bit further, tap it, and then there you go. And I got it so that it pretty much returns back to a non-pressed state when you do the blaster blocks. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to figure out how to operate all of this, but I made it so that it's as easy as it could possibly be with everything that's set up like this. So you'll get a feel for it once you play around with it. It'll be pretty easy to figure out. There you go. So that is how all of that works. So I guess I'll take out the blade plug, put in the blade, and then show it off to you guys. But let's first show that the blade the force activation works with this lightsaber, or with it in the hilt, wherever it is. It has to be above the soundboard, so you'll get a feel for it. Let's see, somewhere around here, I think. I think it's here. It's somewhere here. It can be a little bit tricky to figure out where it is. I can also fine-tune it a little bit more before I send it off to you. There it is. It's right around there. Let's try it one more time. There you go. Alright, so it's right around there. You do have to figure out where it is because it is trying to travel through this entire thing. The detection stuff, but all that can be figured out by just fine-tuning absolutely everything. So we'll put this off to the side. And then I will, there it is, the screwdriver. The blade retention screw is lined up with this. So it's that guy right there. Just unscrew it a little bit. You can also tell because it does stick out ever so slightly more than all the other screws. So, well, let me undo it a little bit more. Okay, just 1 second. I believe that should be the blade detection screw, so let me try and take it out with some pliers here. If I can just do that. There we go. Yeah, it was just stuck in a little bit. So you can also take some pliers and then just grab the little sticky outy things. There we go. So here's a look on the inside. It'll just, you open it up as far as you can go without activating the button. Just slide it in. And of course you want to be as careful as you can. You don't want to cause stress on the pedals or smack them or anything. So when you do put this in, just be as careful as you can. There you go. And then I like to stand it up, put it down like that, and then push the blade all the way in. And then you tighten it. This lightsaber is definitely not a dueling lightsaber. It's a show lightsaber that you get to enjoy all of those fancy features. Kind of like an art piece, I suppose, functional art piece. But it's not at all for dueling because of the fragile nature of the emitter pins, if nothing else. Or the emitter petals, if nothing else. So I do have what is called, well, I do have gesture control, so you can twist it on, twist it off, and that's the only gesture controls I've set up, but of course with CFX you can set up more than that. These are just the ones that I like. And then I've set up all of my standard fonts and such, along with the Rey font, as you can tell. And you can see the blue spark effect right there. I have something called Font Jest activated on here, so if you hold down the activation button and then clash at the same time,
Mute.
or it's hard to do when it's on the table here, and doing it at such a weird angle.
Mute.
And with the wrong hand. So let me swap it over to the other side and I should be able to get it a little bit better. Because I like to strike it with the palm of my hand when I do it. It just makes it a little bit of a more solid clash.
Rey Skywalker.
There we go, and that's the next. And this is
Blue.
the one after. So Font Jest, it'll go forward in your font selection, or you can hold down the button until it goes into the font menu.
Sound bank selection. Rey Skywalker.
And then you can just tap it to cycle forward. I won't show you everything because it is a little bit tedious, because with how the chassis detection works, every time you go into the font selection menu, it will reset back to the first font, which is the one it detects and changes into. That's just the nature of the tangible font selection. So it can be a bit tedious to go through fonts. That's why I have Font Jest set up, so that you can just hold it in Clash and then just go one by one forward through the list of fonts.
Green.
So I'll just
Purple.
cycle through, show you all the fonts I do have on here.
Green. Purple. Red.
And I'm going to show you a couple of them, just to show you that it can do the different colors. Got red. And I know there are a bunch of other controls on here, like how to change the color and changing the blade styles or blade profiles or whatever on the fly, but I have completely forgotten the controls for that, but it will be in the description of the video, basically all the button controls, and this is a single button saber, so I have no clue what it is anymore, how to control all that. So let me just go back to the font selection menu, scroll through everything
Sound
again.
bank selection. Rey Skywalker. Red. White. Red. White. Yellow. White. Yellow.
Okay. I'm doing something that makes it cycle backwards. Once again, I cannot remember the controls properly. It has to do with some kind of timing of pressing the button.
Take your weapon. Let me done with all of your hatred.
The weapon of a Jedi.
Yes. A Jedi's weapon.
Nightfall.
Crystal focus.
Nightfall.
Yeah, I went backwards, so I must have held it there for a
Crystal
little too
focus.
long or something.
Crystal focus.
Nebula.
Or not long enough? No idea.
Grimy.
Revolt. Shackles. The Force Unleashed 2. The Old Republic. Crucible. The Old Republic.
Oh, my cat has come to visit us. Not right now, I'm trying to do a video.
Youngling. Youngling. Youngling.
This is General Kenobi.
Ancient. Rock.
This is General Kenobi.
Ancient.
Audio player.
SD card USB access. System menu. Exit menu.
There we go.
I'm Rey.
And we're back to the
Rey
beginning here.
who?
So I would say, well, obviously you can do whatever you want with this, but I would say keep it to a minimum sound fonts, just because it can be a little bit tedious. Oh, she just pushed off my lens cap off the table. I guess that's what cats do, right? But anyways, this is the Rey lightsaber, and I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. I do have some notes on my phone here. There you go. Remember, always be careful when you take it in and out, just to keep everything safe. Put the blade up here. Then blade plug, there we go. Tighten it up. But I do have notes on my phone, I will check that real quick, and then if there's anything I missed, I'll let you know. But I think I did a pretty good job covering everything.
Chassis disengaged. Crystal core exposed. Repair and maintenance mode operational.
Alright, I just checked my notes and it looks like I did manage to cover absolutely everything in one go. So, I hope you guys enjoyed checking out this look at the lightsaber, and I will close off the video. And we're back to close off the rest of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed checking out this lightsaber, my 4th Rey Master chassis that I've ever built. I am super proud of how it came out. I think I improve every single time I make one of these. I'm honestly not sure how else I can improve, but I will definitely try in the future builds, because I'm sure this is not going to be my last one. So yeah, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to my customer for trusting me to build this for you. I'll have it sent out to you as soon as possible. Hopefully you like it, and look forward to all of my future projects.